Let's bring in our New York Post columnist, Lydia Moynihan, along with Big Money Show co-host Taylor Riggs. And so, ladies, this is different than the machines are going to kill us debate. So there was a piece I saw here recently, and it says that the summary of this is that AI debate reflects a deeper philosophical conflict about the value and risk of knowledge itself. Some AI critics fear that greater intelligence could unleash uncontrollable and catastrophic forces, but others are also worried about, humans having this sort of power. Are you concerned about any of it? You seem like pretty nonchalant about the whole thing.
No, I'm super excited about AI. I don't buy this whole, the machines are gonna turn on us and we're not gonna know how to figure it out. Yes, I think Mythos was sort of like a wake-up call that this thing is real. We kind of need to get our act together. But I also truly, deeply believe in the ingenuity of American founders and entrepreneurs who can always outsmart the next thing and create new and awesome new stuff. So I think net, super bullish on AI.
I read an article yesterday that these machines are teaching themselves. So the creators won't have anything to do with it, that they're going to just supersede everything.
Well, I have great faith that humanity will create more problems that need to be solved.
Better problems.
There is never a shortage of problems. Yeah, I'm also a techno-optimist. I mean, this is so ubiquitous. Anytime we have a huge innovation that feels scary and uncertain, right? We don't know where it's going to go. And there's these incredible cartoons from the turn of the 19th century where it was showing that people would get tangled up and killed by electricity, right? A similar reaction actually when the teddy bear was introduced, that it would prevent women from wanting to be mothers if they played with teddy bears. So we see this kind of movement. And I think techno-optimists need to be much more vocal, because right now people don't really understand what it's going to do, but they are scared. And I think we need to do a better job of messaging. Look, this could make healthcare affordable for the first time ever. You could start to see an AI doctor, essentially, that can prescribe you. We're already seeing some of the technology applied. It's saving people money. It's making things more efficient. And so I think we need to be highlighting those stories, as well as, teaching people how to use it.
We spent a lot of time talking about social media being less social, antisocial, or whatever, and criticizing the use of it. The most recent poll I saw, the majority of folks said they use it to follow celebrities, and the rest of them said they use it to fill spare time. And so then I looked at some of the general uses in this Gen AI, and at the top was therapy, companionship. Is that what you think AI should be doing, or?
I love in there that AI, people aren't using it for companionship or therapy, that most of the things in there that I saw were teaching me, asking
organizing my life, finding purpose, enhancing learning, those kind of things you like.
Agentic AI, teaching me how to do things, helping me code, help me start a new business. New business formation in sectors that are using AI is higher than new business formation in sectors that are not using AI. Because I can go on Claude Code and say, write a business plan for me. I want to do all these cool new things. That's what I love about AI, is the tools that this says, maybe I don't need to go to business school. Maybe I can be an entrepreneur and learn about everything I can on my phone.
Lydia?
It's funny, actually. I feel like switching LLMs is now like switching a therapist. I had a friend who was encouraging her to use Anthropic's Claude, and she said, no, I have this long-standing relationship with ChatGPT.
It knows me.
It knows me. It's been through everything with me. I don't want to switch. So it's interesting. People talk about their bots and their LLMs the way they talk about a therapist. Now, I think it's a helpful tool in addition to having all those relationships. Sometimes it's nice, and if you don't want to bother somebody, it's the middle of the night and you just need to think something through, I think it can be helpful. In addition, obviously, to having relationships and other people in your life, as long as it doesn't usurp those.
In just 1 year, I got to tell you, a lot of stuff changed, right? Troubleshooting jumped up there, fan fiction, relationship advice is up there, work buddy. Let's shift gears.
Than a therapist.
Let's shift gears a little bit, because there's something happening in the Hollywood, in the movie industry, that's not AI. In fact, it's not big budgets. The exact opposite. You guys see all these movies that are doing well with the millennials, one 20-year-old, one 26-year-old. Now, I did see an article, though, and I really thought about you, Taylor. This 26-year-old Curry Baker made this movie Obsession. Have you heard about it? It's killing it at the box office. It's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. But an article said that it's part of this hetero-pessimist horror. In other words, they're anti-marriage. It's just the underlying theme is that marriage is like death. This is something that's, if
crazy.
you pay attention, it's happening throughout pop culture right now.
I'm going to go out on a huge limb. I'm going to get crucified for this. People who say that are either in bad marriages or they're single and they want to villainize marriage because they're unhappy in their own single life. Everyone gets to decide for themselves what they want, but marriage, family formation is one of the most rewarding, hard work, but absolutely incredible things.
Right.
And I don't like that we sort of villainize it, or like, oh, the guy's settling down, or oh, the woman has to stay home and raise children. That's one of the biggest blessings I've had.
Well, but Lydia, it's also, it's not just anti-marriage, but it's horror. Like, it's like a,
it sounds exactly like what Amy Gertner, Graham Plattner's wife, said over the weekend. It's so hard. Yeah, I think it's hard if you're married to Graham Plattner. I don't think most people feel that way. Anyway, look, I am not married. I would like to be.
Right.
I think a lot of the pessimism, frankly, stems more from people who can't find the right person. Mm-hmm. A lot of young women I know, and especially in a big city, they want to be with a great guy, and they're struggling to do that because a lot of people don't want to commit. Right. So I think the pessimism is more fear that they won't find the right person. And I think most people still want it. They still yearn for that deep connection and having children. And I don't think the desire has changed. I think the reality.
I want to jump on that having children part, because America has a baby crisis, but right now, conservative women are coming to the rescue.
Yep.
In the month of April, white women, mostly conservatives, have 51.7% of all the children. That's the first time they've really been over 51%, and maybe, I don't know, years. This goes back a few years.
I'm going to tell you why. Because conservatives right now have such an optimistic view on life. The left has been telling white men, you're evil, you're oppressive, you're the problem. How dare you? Right. Stop forming families. The world's going to end. Climate change. Right. Oh my gosh, how could you ever bring up a kid in a world like this? The world is horrible. Politics are horrible. And the right is preaching a message of hope, faith, courage, business formation, excitement, family formation. And so I think it's just a fundamental difference right now in the narratives between people who are optimists and people who say the world's dying, the world is ending, fascism is taking over, Nazis are in power, don't ever have children again.
We have just a minute, and I want to hit two things real quick. I want to ask you about this Victoria's Secret. They brought sexy back. They brought sexy women back about a year ago. They said, you know what? There's something about this, the birds and the bees, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, the stock was up 47%.
With the new stock ticker.
Because they changed the name to very sexy.
Yes.
What was amazing about this is the big boom came in households below 50,000 and above 200,000.
It's called range. No, it's interesting too. One of the things the CEO had pointed out is that people aren't even really that attuned to sales at Victoria's Secrets because they're buying a product that they're excited about that does promise some excitement and fantasy. And the angels who I grew up with, I follow them on Instagram, right? And
it's just amazing though, like the whole woke thing went against human nature. It went against nature. All right, real quick. For 31 years, your favorite dog was the #1 dog in America, the Labrador. It's been displaced.
Why?
You guys know the new #1 dog?
French Bulldog?
The French Bulldog.
Come on.
Yeah.
Why?
Now listen.
That's not even American.
Here, look. Do we have it? Do we have it? Look at that. The French Bulldog, folks. Those are the cufflinks.
Prepared.
Yes. Now listen.
It used to be the lab
for 31 years. For 31 years.
Wow.
Are you upset about this?
I'm a cat person.
The labs are a little big.
I love cats.
I will say, so I have a dachshund, and I actually don't like that it's becoming more popular because everywhere I go now, people stop me. I have a dachshund too.
I hate to say this, but the French Bulldog looks like everyone's drunk uncle at the picnic. You know, it's like someone go get Uncle Joe again. You know, they always look a little drunk to me. I don't know.
Get a sweet cat.
I don't know about that
Cats, you have to earn their love. Dogs, you don't have to.
Yep. I don't
Lydia,
want to earn love.
Taylor, thank you both very much. That was a lot of fun. All right, folks, come